to be good. But being good always been problems, it's true. So I learned it, and now I know I don't wanna play God. Maybe I'm crazy, but I'm not wrong, baby, it's true, yeah. What if I'm not good? What if I'm not good? If you never love me back.
Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Didsbury Art Studio and I'm Sally. And in today's video, I want to share with you a textile technique that is using heat transfer paints, various different fabrics, and also I'm going to be using quite a bit of free motion stitch, so fabric manipulation with pleating. We're going to be looking at an artist as a reference, and I'm also going to be looking at the drawings and paintings that I've been doing on natural forms. So I'm going to be translating some of those into a textile sample. Let's see how we get on. Let's get into it. So today I'm going to be looking at my painting mixed media piece that I did for natural forms, and I'm going to be using the colours as far as possible onto this silk fabric. But to get it onto the silk fabric, I'm going to be using these heat transfer paints, and I'm going to paint them onto the paper, leave that to dry, and then we iron these onto the silk fabric.
What if I'm not good? What if I'm not good? If you never love me back. What if I'm not good? What if I'm not good? If you never love me back. What if I'm not good? What if I'm not good? If you never love me back.
So this just gets left to dry now, and once it's dry I'm going to iron it onto my silk fabric. This one here, I just used some of the transferable paints onto some paper, and I just did a kind of diluted, watered down sort of background on this thin cotton fabric. Okay, so I've got my heat transferable paints onto some paper. Just turn them over onto the silk. Just going to cover it with some baking parchment, and then I've got the highest heat on my iron with steam. Really iron for about 3 minutes. And you can use sort of tissue paper over the top, but I'm finding that the baking parchment is fine. Iron for, and how long you sort of pause in one spot, it will create different depths of the colour that's transferred onto your fabric. And it's also dependent on what fabric you use. So right here I'm using silk fabric, and I've got the majority of it covered now. So you can do, this is obviously more abstract looking, but if you want to do more realistic, then you can draw your design onto fabric and do a more detailed piece. I did a project once at school with pop art, and we drew onto the fabric, and we used different squares of different types of fabrics, so the print really was emphasised on some fabrics and not on others. Layla! So yeah, you can just iron over that. So as you know, I took a little area over here on my piece. Talk through this artist that I found, Marit Fujiwara. I hope I pronounced that right. And I just came across this artist on Pinterest, and you know, I'm just fascinated by the manipulation of the fabric and the use of free motion embroidery. She has manipulated the silk fabric, it appears, and then sewn it with embroidery and done these kind of transparent, opaque, really delicate dresses, and so vibrant in colour as well. And just loved the layers and the repetition of how she's distorted the fabric and sewn it down with machine stitch. It looks as if she's used zigzag stitch as well as straight stitch, but the colours are just really beautiful. I mean, that one's really quite subtle as well, isn't it? It looks like watercolour, but I think on some of them they've used marbling. So, I mean, cake dresses there. Yeah, absolutely stunning. So I just feel quite inspired to use this as an artist reference. So I know that I'm not going to do the marbling to begin with, and actually I'm going to combine using cotton fabric and silk fabric, but I feel quite inspired by this as an initial inspiration. So what I've done here is I've stretched out the cotton fabric. I'm going to use the heat transfer paints that I've done on the silk, and I'm going to add this with stitch onto this background. Just ironed some little pleats into the silk fabric, and I've got my cotton fabric as a base, and I'm going to be looking over here at this area just because I'm attracted to these kind of colours and shapes that are going on in here. And then looking at the artist's work, I'm going to start adding some stitch into here. It's not going to be obviously bigger than this sort of size sample piece, but we'll see how we get on with adding the colours in there. So what I've done so far is I've laid down the silk onto the background fabric, and I've used zigzag stitch to almost secure it down in the position that I want. So I'm just following this little area here. So I'm going to be introducing lots of thread colours, going to be more decorative. Right now I've just put a lilac colour thread underneath on my bobbin, and I'm just creating a shape and linking the silk to the cotton fabric.
They told me that I always had to be good, but being good always been problems, it's true.
What I'm doing now is just sewing the edges of the silk onto the cotton fabric using straight stitch. Also, what I'm going to do now is just put the straight stitch in between these pleats to secure and hold down the fabric as to where I want them to go. Just hidden down here with one line of stitch. We're going to do the other bits in between the pleating to secure it all down as well. Starting with the deep purples, and I'm going into some lilac-y and into some pinky red tones, and then I'm going to be introducing these kind of colours over here with stitch. That's the kind of purpley colours going into your reds. And then over here, this green section with the turquoisey blues and yellows, I'm going to be putting over this section here. So just looking at the flow of the paint there, and it's kind of doing that sort of backwards S shape, which I've tried to sort of emulate over here. Introduce some dark green kicking off at the top over here, going into sort of limey green, maybe into a bit of light turquoisey blue, and then some dark blues popped in. I'm going to sew some of this up as well, maybe a bit like that, a little bit more, and then maybe add a little bit more creamy light greens mixed in, merging them in a little bit. Okay, bit of an update. I'm very nearly finished, just doing this last corner over here. So I'm going to put in some creams over this white area of the fabric and then add some blue threads. Okay, so I'll show you in a bit. Okay, then I think that I possibly finished. Hopefully you can see over here the kind of resemblance and some of the patterns and the fabric manipulation I've managed to do with the silk there. So yeah, very pleased. So managed to get quite a few samples just from these drawings and paintings that I did here in my sketchbook. So got quite a few now, so I'm going to test them out on the mannequin and see if that would probably be enough. I'm thinking maybe I'll do one more. Just playing around with the samples that I've done. And they're really just samples for techniques, not necessarily to use the samples in final pieces, but I just want to see what I can do with them. So I've got one more here, the tie-back one, which I did in another video, and I'm just looking to see how I could present it. I'm going to keep playing. If you really enjoyed this video today, and if you did, please give me a massive thumbs up. It really helps me out. If you enjoy this sort of content, I make a lot of art and textile content, then if you're brand new around here and you want to get a little bit more involved, then I post every week and it'd be great to have you as a subscriber. And also I post daily on my Instagram, which is Didsbury Art Studio, the same. So come over there and have a look on my stories, and I'll show you sort of the lead up to projects and also about my daily life as well. All right then, thank you again for all the support that you have been giving me. I get so many great comments from you that are just fantastic and really encouraging. And I just love the support that you've given me so far. It's been quite a journey this last year and I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.